Chef Mike here from Roth Living in Minnesota with a quick recipe on diner style mac and cheese. Now, diner style mac and cheese, to me, I was fortunate enough to spend a little time in the South, and I love that creamy, cheesy with a crunchy top mac and cheese, and that's what we're going to put together for you today. It starts off with, I actually start a little topping first because it has a relatively short bake time and I want to get that topping nice and brown and crispy. Traditionally, those toppings would have been made out of a butter cracker, like a Ritz cracker, and so it already had a little bit of color. Today, most people use panko, and panko has plenty of crunch and it's readily available, but it's a little bit lighter in color. So to get that nice dark color on top, I really want to kind of start that browning on the stovetop. So I have a little melted butter, and I'm just going to put this in there, and I'm going to use the Wolf Dual Stack Melt feature, that really low temperature feature, which will allow it to just slowly sneak up on the right browning, and it won't require too much attention while we put together the filling. So I'm going to add panko, butter, and then just a little bit of freshly grated parmesan. And that parmesan will add a little flavor to that topping and also another nice toasty brown color. So I'm just going to stir those two together, panko, the Parmesan cheese into that melted butter, spread it out, and just let that sit on melt feature back there until we're ready to put it on top. Now let's talk about our filling. This is a baked style mac and cheese as opposed to a stovetop mac and cheese, and for that you would start with a kind of a cheese sauce and then fold your cooked pasta into it. That sauce is classically a bechamel, which is a roux thickened milk sauce. However, nobody who made diner style mac and cheese in the South would have ever called it a bechamel. They would have just called it the sauce. But that's truly what it is. So I've got some shallots in here that have been just softened in some butter. You can see there's not a lot of color on them because I just want them to be tender but not with any color. So on top of those, I'm going to add a little flour. Now, roux is classically a fat and flour mixture that is used to help thicken sauces, and so to this I'm going to just sprinkle in a little flour. And then you only have to cook it long enough to lose the raw flour flavor. It's not a long time. So we'll stir that flour into there, and we'll just let that cook for a few minutes. And what happens is the flour hydrates in the fat, and then it cooks a little bit, and that becomes a very powerful thickening agent in our sauce. Let's go back and check on our breadcrumbs here and see where we are. Just getting started back there to get a little color on them. So just want to gently stir this roux just for a few minutes. Again, you're just trying to cook out the raw flour flavor. You're not trying to develop color, a deep color on the roux. And then it's typically you add a milk mixture to it. Now I'm going to add a little bit of milk and a little bit of cream. This is a luxurious dish. It's not a light dish, and that cream really helps with a nice creamy texture with the cheeses we're going to add to it. So I've got my roux bubbling here. I'm going to add the milk product, but before I do that, one of my flavor additions that I really like to add to this dish is just a little bit of white wine. So I've got a really crisp Sauvignon Blanc. I'm just going to add this wine to the flour and shallot and butter mixture, and then I'm going to add my milk and cream. And then this is just going to thicken for a few minutes. So let's do that. Stir those together. And we're going to let this cook for just a couple of minutes and thicken. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And we got our thickened milk sauce here. You can tell it's thickened up just a little bit. Now we're ready to, and you just stir it while it's doing that till it thickens slightly. Now we're going to add our cheeses. Before I add those, let's take a check on these breadcrumbs. On the simmer feature, they get nice and toasty brown. So we'll just stir those for a second, and they're going to get a little darker once they get on top and in the oven, but I like, again, as I said, to give them a little head start. So the cheeses for this, you got a lot of freedom. You need about 3 cups plus of cheese. My favorite cheeses to use is gruyere and white cheddar. Now there are lots of options. You just don't want to do a cheese that's too stringy, like I wouldn't do mozzarella in this, but you have a little bit of freedom into the cheeses you choose. And I'm just going to stir this cheese into that milk cream thickened sauce. I'm actually going to, as soon as that cheese is melted, I'm going to turn the heat off, because we're just trying to get that cheese sauce melted. Beautiful. I'm also going to add a little bit of gorgonzola. Not a lot, not enough to actually taste blue cheese, but enough to give it just this other little tang flavor. 2 more flavor elements that I'm going to add to this now. I'm going to add a little Dijon mustard. And I'm going to add some fresh chives. Feel free to substitute green onions, not a problem. You just want something with a little onion flavor in there, a little green. Makes you feel better about all the cheese you're about to eat. Okay, now that is all stirred together. The cheeses are melted. I want to fold in my cooked pasta. Now I chose penne today. You can use penne, ziti. You can use elbow macaroni. I tend to leave elbow macaroni for my stovetop version, a little smaller. In this baked version, I like that heartier noodle. It'll hold on to a little bit more sauce and a little more flavor. Got that completely stirred together now. And then the last thing you want to do is I'm going to fold in some whipped eggs. And this will just help this whole pasta mixture set. And so just some eggs here. The heat is off, so I won't scramble these eggs in adding them. Just going to add them, stirring constantly until I get this beautiful, nice mixture. And then, as any good southern diner mac and cheese, you need a little bit of cayenne. Totally optional. If you're not a heat fan, no need to, but it's not a lot. It's just enough to remember where it's from. Okay. Now I'm going to take this and put it into my prepared baking dish. For your dish, you just want something shallow that has plenty of surface area so you can get a nice crunchy brown top. You see that going in there? It looks really cheesy and nice. Little flecks of the chives in there. I have prepared this all in one pot, where I used a low braising, like a Le Creuset braising dish, and you went from stovetop right to the oven. Totally doable. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is take our crumbs that have this really nice start on their dark brown color, and I'll put them over the top. And then we're going to put it in the oven and bake it for about 20 minutes. Now, I'm going to use the convection humid setting on the Wolf convection steam oven. And if you remember, that setting is the one that just lets all the moisture stays in and then cooks with dry heat. And what that's going to do is it's going to darken the color on these beautiful crumbs on top, but it's also going to set that custard without overcooking it. So it's that nice combination because it'll have a little additional moisture, the moisture that was in this food when it went in there. Okay. Crumbs in. If you don't have a steam oven, just put this in your regular oven. It's a pretty short bake time. So we're going to put it in the oven. I'll come back and show you the results. We're back and it's out of the oven. You can see we got nice, a little darker browning on our crumb. The noodles are browned and crunchy on the edges. Smells are incredible. You need to let it rest on the counter for about 20 minutes before you cut into it, but the smells will probably drive you crazy. Come back to this Rolf Living YouTube channel for more recipes and enjoy your mac and cheese.